Thank you very much. It's a it's a pleasure being here, and thank you, Betty. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Patricia. Everyone from the TCD, from the Amazon Dams Network, which is the reason of me being here, right? Where I started also this type of work with graphic facilitation and visual thinking. So Betty already introduced me. So here in this mini workshop, it's just like an introduction, saying a little bit about my work in this area, and also bring some examples. And but it's like a short workshop. We are not able to do something bigger. So, but I want to also bring like the potential of these tools for environmental research, for the researchers that are being made here at TCD, at UF, and also I'm sure that there's a lot of works that is a type of graphic facilitation, you know, like people who work with communities, who facilitate projects, and so first we introduce ourselves. I put some of these pictures there. I'm seeing here some drawings, and it's always good to see people being free to draw, because you always have this people who are, since they're younger in the classrooms, always in doodles. So this author here, Sunny Brown, she says that doodling promotes concentration and increase the information retention enough to 29%. So sometimes the doodles are seen like something that, oh, it's not good, people scratching, but it also helps in the learning process. And if we think about shapes, forms, and communication in the history, we go back to like 12,000 years ago, and we see all these drawings still in the nature, petroglyphs on the rocks, on the Xingu River, where I've been working my PhD. So you have all this testimony of the past in drawings, right? Just coming back a little bit on time. And well, the graphic facilitation, I started with this workshop by this group called Coletivo Entre Linhas in Brazil. So they brought this workshop thinking about graphic facilitation related to human rights. So here is a picture, it's in Portuguese, but it shows a little bit of the big potentials of individual or collective way in a more intern process, in a more extern process. And we have some thinking together, represent and showing process and products. So just picture to start a little bit. And about the doodles, I was saying that it's nice to see some drawings here, because when we start growing up, we start judging, oh, I don't know how to draw, and then we stop and we keep all cutting this potential artist on us. So we need really to free that, to think about how text and shapes can show emotions, can show ideas, can show metaphors, all the potential of mixing text and shapes. And it doesn't need to be the drawing, drawing to be on an art exhibition. Sometimes just little forms can have a big potential to show information and communicate. So the synthesis, the synthesis of the process of the graphic facilitation is in this image here. So you see that you have to have an active listening. The listening is very important. And sometimes when we do graphic facilitation, we do in a team where one person is only hearing and the other is drawing. And the most important is the synthesis. What do you hear? How do you focus? What are the main topics? And this is really a science thinking. We are all the time doing science, listening, reading, and thinking what is the main issue talking in this paper that I'm reading, or if I'm in a project, which are the main message that I want to pass. So during research, we are all we're all the time in this process of listening, absorbing, and synthesizing. So I did this metaphor here in like when you are highlighting a text, you are pointing out which are the main things. So this is a process of listening, and doing a synthesis. So thinking about how simple text and shapes can pass a message to the board here. So people who are on internet, you're seeing yourselves here, right? Is there anyone who is in the internet want to say something? Are you hearing okay?
There are messages in the chat.
Is anyone here in the mirror who is in the internet? If it's not, say hello. So I just put here some very simple images. They are very common on graphics facilitation. So I was so people who is in the internet, you can click on the post-its and put in the right next to the figure, and you can write. What do you think that this can mean? The people here can say, put here. Let's go. Are you? Oh, let me just lock it.
So like that one is a you.
I will lock it. Lock it. Here. Lock. So you escape.
Oh, that's a good tool.
Yeah. What is it?
What's that?
Yeah. Now it's locked. So what else more? Anyone here has something to say about these figures here?
Tired? Is that tired?
Here?
What's that? The one with
No.
First, I thought it was the tongue hanging out, but I think everything's
out.
Just together, it's thinking. I was worried. Look, yeah. I see the magnifying glasses. Let's look closer or examine further.
Okay, even just do research, you. A single one research.
Close.
Oh. It's just a little bit more of a distance.
You want me to write? I think isn't it too much for you? Renata, to go
Can you write here?
Yeah.
You are here.
I
I don't know why. Wow, there's a lot of people here on the internet. I like it.
Yeah.
There isn't enough time. I like it. Wow. So, for example, I imagine you all do a lot of PowerPoint sheets. And I don't know if you like, for example, to use icons like that or images. So this is also something to think when you are doing presentation, you know, taking off a little bit of text, using icons to pass some idea. So, for example, people who are in internet, there isn't enough time. Yes, this is, can be time, can be like the schedule of a project. The one with the targets can be like the objectives of a project, or for example, ideas, right? The lamp is really classic. The net, what's the name of this?
Magnifying glass.
Magnifying glass. It's can be like researching or something like that. Card notes. These agreements are also like when agreements between governments, you can put something like a suite or something, approval. Yeah, a lot of examples. Doubt, concern, thinking. Yeah, a lot of ideas here. So I imagine that a lot of people here use this kind of images in their apartment units also, right? Okay, let's come back then. So here I bring some examples of American graphic facilitators. This graphic facilitation started on the United States, and these are like main references, but there's a lot of people working on it also. And David Siebert is one of the first more being known, and he has some books that talks about visual meetings, visual projects. So this graphic facilitation area, it has some start on like psychology, design of projects, and we also had Sunny Brown that talked about the doodle. I like a lot of the work of Brandy Agerbeck, but we see a lot of practice more in this like business area, workshops of great big companies. You see a lot of use of graphic facilitators, like design thinking of projects. But my work isn't exactly this kind of work. It's more related to environmental research because it's what I've been working on it. So I also bring some examples from Brazil that are more like in this human rights and community engagement and social environmental context. One of them is just here, Coletivo Classe Flora, from Carol and Carla de Lácio, who were in GIA project, right? Which I saw some projects, here are one of them. So you see that you're using it and it has a great potential of showing the projects, right, of these projects. This also Mosaic Fluido, Arte da Conversa, and Coletivo Entre Linhas, which was the one that I did the workshop or start learning with them. In the chat. Okay. So my first work with graphic facilitation was in a project of the Amazon Dams Network. This was the participatory management of biodiversity in indigenous lands affected by hydroelectric dams in the Amazon, which was Elineide and Simone, Juliana Laufer from the Amazon Dams Network, Sylvia also, who were working on it. So in the Xingu workshop that received also indigenous from other communities affected by dams. So this project was an interchange between indigenous people facing this struggle. And during these workshops, I did this graphic facilitation on Xingu and also in Tocantins. So this is one of the products of this project. So during the meeting in Tocantins, each one was saying the main impacts, and I did this mapping of where were they located, what are the main problems there. So this was like a graphic facilitation with the project, the dynamics, with the facilitation, the mediation proposed by the leaders of the project. So you see here the dams and the affected indigenous people. And then after, like, so during the discussion groups, we had some key question for them to discuss and describe how was the process of each one of them. And then during the presentation of each indigenous people, I was like doing the graphic facilitation in this classical way, which is doing a visual panel, like for example, some of them that have here. And then as the main, as this activity was SWOT analysis, right? Strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats method. So Then I pick all the drawings and organize it in the SWOT, in the negative and the positive aspects of their narrative. So this was also a product of this project, when you have this SWOT analysis applied, and then you organize the drawings describing each indigenous people, what they see as positive and negative. Right? And also during the workshop at Palmas, of the workshop of Amazon Dance Network in 2018, which is also you had this very great ebook, Os Terras e Culturas. So some of the visual panels that were built there are in this publication, and was made with I made with Carla de Lácio. We were both doing this, and this is one of the panels who was a speech of Professor Emílio Moran about the Belo Monte case. So just an example of this visual panel, which is more the classic method of graphic facilitation, but in my view, I see graphic facilitation a million of possibilities. So this is another panel that I did on the Volta Grande do Xingu, where I'm researching the Jururiara indigenous people who are in the Xingu River affected by the Belo Monte Dam. So this was the launch of the territorial and management plan. So they were speaking about each issue of culture, education, and I was doing this visual panel meanwhile. But then, and then here, besides the visual panel, right? I like to think the graphic presentation, it's a new name, but you can see as visual tools that are already in practice in some places. So this was a workshop about history on the Xingu region with indigenous teachers. So my friend did all this research about the historical moments, and we did this while he was teaching and saying the history. Each centimeter was here, and I was like putting all the tags meanwhile the workshop was happening. And also you can like invent things, right? This is a seasonal calendar. So this was a consultancy that I made there also with this is from Arara people, Arara indigenous people. And I built this wooden thing in the flip chart thing, and then I had like a lot of drawings, and it was sticking, and I was gluing. Took a picture, and I transformed it in a visual presentation in another project, and this can be a banner for them. So you have also the thing that you do during the learning process, but also you can then transform it in a product, in a banner, in something that can stay after, right? And they say that look like a bingo, you know? And also something that not all the time is called like graphic facilitation, but also illustrated videos, animated videos. I'm sure you have all seen a lot of this type of things, and I really like this kind of thing. People not all the time say it's a graphic facilitation. So this one was for the Surui indigenous people. They were looking for help for doing a COVID-19 orientation and about the how to prevent and what is the disease. So we did this, we studied this script, and it has the audio is in the Surui language. So this an animated video in the page, in the Instagram page of them, the cultural center. You have this videos available. And well, so besides the visual panels, I showed here a little other examples, and we have millions of possibilities of thinking about art, about science, about environment. And I'm sure that all of you have some of them during your research and works. So you have infographics, mind mappings, you do brainstorming, and then you organize information, you do cluster, you do hierarchy, the SWOT analysis that I showed them, and oh my mother.
How did those?
Yeah, we can.
Action plan, that also you use the papers, timelines, share videos, and I think maybe you have some other ideas of things that you think is graphic presentation or visual tools that you use in your days.
I used in my dissertation, my research framework, I did icons for my different chapters, for my presentation. My dissertation is full of graphic things. Yeah. It helps me to think, and I think it helps to explain the ideas that are in 400 pages. So if there's some drawing,
What else more? Maybe like conceptual frameworks, when you're trying to think of framework, and you put the same idea and the link. I see a lot of that in the Amazon Dance Network. You are always thinking about these frameworks. Go online, you can share here, anyone. So for this presentation, I was thinking, so what are the benefits that you think the graphic facilitation can bring, and what are the challenges also to do it? Also, yeah, we can right. So what do you think is benefits and challenges of doing graphic facilitation? So one example that I think of a challenge may be stereotypes. For example, working with indigenous people, maybe you can do a representation of something that is not from their culture. So you have to think about briefing, studying a little bit, who is going to participate, which are the, maybe if you're doing for an institution, you can talk before, oh, how is the public will be there? And if you are dealing with indigenous or different cultures, what are the main representation, what you should avoid? So you can do question for guiding and avoiding this type of things, which is really important because when you're already there, right? And you don't have an idea, maybe you can do a mistake without wanting it. As a benefit that I saw in the Amazon Dance Network workshop, after I did a visual panel, someone told me that there was a deaf student. So she was really happy seeing the visual panel because she was understanding what's happening there. And there's more challenges.
I mean, I'm just amazed at, these workshops can be really chaotic and a lot of ideas flowing and discussion flowing. How you guys are so able to listen and to capture
my neighbor
things and put things down. So I don't think my brain works that fast to be able to do that translation onto the page.
Yeah. So this drawings here, I forgot to tell, was a digital graphic facilitation, but I did the drawing, but with a camera. Meanwhile, this was like a congress of my graduate program. So I was doing the synthesis, and it's like Ailton Krenak, this indigenous leader speech, and this was really cool. So I did this here in the United States with a camera in this congress in Brazil. Sorry, people on the internet, I can put a photo after in the mural. Oh, Carol is showing, which is saw in the first screen. So some of examples that I did here in the US, transmitting to Brazil. Well, the perceived idea you can draw. Yeah, a challenge. It's all about the practice, right? visual futures, how to practice the create drawings, lack of skills, also practice. Benefits, engaging, younger participants, translate complex ideas, synthesis, inclusion, yeah, what we were talking about. Communicate with non-verbal audiences, language barriers, I think this is also a good advantage when you have international workshop. And also, I really appreciate doing this with like indigenous leader speech, because their speech are very visual, you know, like they are always saying so visual. Please?
Yeah, I have a question. Maybe this is a challenge, but you as a graphic facilitator in this case, how do you choose, for example, which things you actually draw about the meeting? Because as Betty was saying, there are a lot of ideas and things that are happening. So do you have like a systematic process or how, or it's just about experience that what things actually you use to synthesize these ideas? That one, and if after you finish the design, you show to the participants to have some feedback, how this works?
Yeah, I think this time is a very difficult issue to deal. So I forgot to explain better in the beginning, but this is our best friend, the post-its. Sometimes the best way of doing a visual panel is with two persons, because one person is just with the post-it listening and putting the topics, and then if I'm drawing in the sport, for example, the one who is listening is right next to me, putting in the post-it. And so sometimes, for example, I start to draw the first lecture, and the second lecture is already beginning, but I'm still in the first one, but I'm okay because the other person is doing the active listening and putting the main points in the post-it. So if I'm only looking at the post-it and drawing, I have more time to think, oh, which are the icons that I will pick, which is the template. I can do like a beautiful drawing in the middle and then just put text, or I can put, oh, she said about objectives, I would put the target icon, or they're saying about that river in the Amazon, I will draw the river and put the text in between. So when it's two persons working, if you have more time and I think the visual panel gets better because two persons collaborating, right? Yes.
But if two persons are working together, it's necessary to have like a connection to understand the like 2 or 3 words and perceive what they say. And
for example, those panels that I showed, I did with Carla. So we are both graphic facilitators. So we have the practice of, we call to collect the data, the one to collect, the one to draw. So I think the being a researcher helps a lot of being a good active listener and putting in like bullet points and main topic. So I think really research helps us of being quick on synthesizing something, right? And so that's why I say it's not only about drawing or having skills or, you know, but also this part is the main important thing. If I draw well, but my friend doesn't collect the data well, it will not be okay. We only have drawings, but not connected to the information, which is intention, right?
Just to say that there's a question here, but just before, I think the point that Osvaldo was making, I think is important. The challenge is there is a filter of your listening always from your own biases that can show in graphic facilitation. I remember once I worked with a graphic recorder. I was facilitating a workshop and someone else was recording. And it was from São Paulo that went to the Amazon, didn't really know the region. And for example, the way he drew people were not representing the people who lives in the Amazon. So there's those kinds of filters that is a challenge. It's important to get. And I remember someone came to him and said like, hey, this is not exactly how it looks like. And then he changed his drawing. I think that can help with indigenous people as well. Yeah. So being aware of that as well.
You have a lot of challenges when you are doing it. You have this short time. I have a friend, Victor Massal, who was one of the ones that I did the workshop that I learned with him. He said that he was in an indigenous village and they were saying all about the paca, the animal paca, And he was, oh my God, I don't know his name. So he said to a child, hey, draw Paga for me. And okay. And so you don't have Google, you don't have the internet to search for it. So but I think as, for example, someone put there, working with younger participants, when you are in the community, you always have that children wanting to do something. If you have like some papers, some pencil, oh, do something for here, and then you can try to integrate the youngers, the drawings of the kids with speech. It's also a way that you can maybe cross this generation barriers also, right?
I imagine that there gotta be some clusters of symbols, right? Like in the business sphere, you have symbols or drawings that are specific that you continue to use and you build that knowledge as a graphic facilitator. But then you working in the Amazon, decided to build those drawings that is like it just works and it really represents what I want to say or what I heard. And then you keep using them and kind of like leave aside the ones that really don't.
I mean, if I keep using the same like visual repertoire, you mean?
Yes, visual bits, because I mean, for example, the goal, the symbol of the goal is like,
Yeah.
for some people, that's what it means, but for
Yeah.
other people, it's like, I
Maybe
never
don't,
seen
right?
anything like
Yeah. I think it's a challenge when you are in environmental sector, if you are in a community. So trying to understand what are the symbols there for each of these issue. Oh, they're talking about education. How is the education in that place? So when I was learning in that workshop, we were doing some exercises by this Coletivo Entre Linhas, and they say about it was reading like education, and everybody was drawing something. Like everyone was drawing a book. And then I thought, oh, I work in indigenous community. I don't want to draw a book. So I draw a woman with the child speaking. And it was the only draw that was in the book, right? So that's again the stereotype. Sometimes that main figure, the main icon that comes up to your mind, it doesn't fit there, right? So having experience with the community, the place that you are trying to facilitate, it's really important. So that's why it's so difficult. Sometimes you bring someone from other place. You need to have a lot of plannings. You need to understand that place, that culture, the symbols, for doing it in the proper way. It's really a challenge, but that's why I think the more we see it in an integrated way, like if I'm working with this community and I want some graphic facilitation, I really need to call someone that is from the area, or I will stay like a month before with this person, even know a little bit more. You have also the profile person, you know, some of them are not used to work environmental sector. For example, this graphic facilitator told me once that he was in like, I think it was a biodiversity conference, and he was always drawing trees the same way, and someone told me, okay, your trees are not like that. Here we like the trees, biodiversity trees. So this is the kind of challenge that graphics facilitators face all the time, right?
Patricia is asking here how important it is to prepare before an event in terms of themes and speakers to know about it.
Yeah, this is always something pretty difficult, because sometimes if you can get like the PowerPoint sheets before, or studying the curriculum of the person, or seeing the resume or summary of your work, and try to think about some visual references before. This is pretty difficult, because most of the time, okay, 1, 2, 3, go. But you didn't have a talk before, didn't have planning. So people who works with that try always to do this in advance and try to understand which is the context that you're coming. I think that's why you have like more graphic facilitators working in this business, because they're like more homogeneous, thinking about which message they're talking about, which are the references. And here, like the researchers here at TCD and working in this environmental sector, you have such a diversity, right? Diversity of places, of reference, the nature, the references of the nature, the different cultures, different languages. We which makes more difficult, but also I think it's more like when you are able to do this in this different context. Because I think graphics representation should skip from this business mind and go explore these places where people think visually, right? If you go to a community, local communities working on the Amazon or other places, I think these visual tools are really interesting, right? Because the text barrier sometimes it makes more difficult if you try not only this graphic facilitation, but you know, when you're doing like photo voice with interviews or people who work with fishing, you always bring the photo of fish. So always thinking visual, you know, trying to see a photo, what is changing in this landscape. So when I think when we think about visual tools in research and community engagement, we are doing graphic presentation. It's like disrupting the graphic facilitation of the business and putting it in a social environmental context. This is like my aim in the graphic facilitation. And I think, and I'm sure that a lot of researchers here do this, right? Try to use these visual tools for improving research practice, right? Yeah. What is
We have a student from graphic and design, visual something on Zoom, so that's pretty cool.
okay. Nice. Good to know. So I'll post I'll put the name of my Instagram page and my website right here. This is. So in my website, you have the portfolio and the Instagram page. I put some things of not only graphic, but also sketch and Japanese paintings and Japanese painting practitioner. So I think what's that? Any other issues?
I have a question. I mean, so would you recommend someone who doesn't have, like me, I can't draw very well, but I'd be willing to like try something. Do you feel like this is an activity we need training to do, or would you recommend it to someone, not like at a formal conference, but even in some informal meeting to try to change the dynamic and capture things in a different way?
Yeah, sure. Because I think one of the, that's being like a new concept, a new area, but a new area that comes from our practice that's already there. Sometimes people mix what is a graphic facilitation, a visual thinking tools, and what is like a group facilitation, a mediation of groups. I think there are some overlaps in between, but it's very different actually, right? For example, if I'm hired to do a graphic facilitation, I cannot mediate a group, right? I don't have skills for that. Here you have a fellow who does that and other persons. And I think a graphic facilitator working with a mediator is also a great potential, because the mediator are thinking which dynamic I will use in the workshop, and you know, you're planning how to interact person, and the other person, the other graphic facilitator, thinking it in visual tools. So I think when you have this team of graphic facilitators, something more focused on visual tools, and the other person coordinating this learning process and the techniques, the tools that will be used for this participation moment, I think this is also a good interaction, you know. And nowadays you have some of the graphic facilitators that are shown, they have books. For example, David Siebert has his visual meetings books who are really focus on that. And these authors, sometimes they do some online courses. I think it's good. I don't know. I haven't done none of them in US. I only did that one in Brazil, which was pretty nice, but I didn't saw they were reading it. But I'm sure that this graphic facilitators here from US, they first must be good to start thinking about the simple draws that can help. But I think also for focusing on applying this on meeting, on planning projects, on the group, on a community learning process. I think there's a lot of potential. Maybe you need to adapt some things that they teach more related to this business sector, but I think they have good ideas for research practices.
Yeah, if I may just share my story, might help you. When I work as a facilitator, and I really always like it, and I took a workshop in graphic facilitation. When I sit there, I'm like, I don't know how to draw. And me, like half of the people there said this, and a few one were really good drawers, and they were like great in the workshop. But once I broke this barrier of I can't draw, I start drawing. And what I do, I have my own little book that I make like little drawings just to try. And I just try to do it more freely. And now like it's in my dissertation. I got like the way of drawing simple things and simple ideas that help me express. I'm not gonna do an amazing panel like this, but I do little things. So I don't think it's for everybody. It's just like breaking the first barrier of I cannot draw, and then starting in with all those like visual vocabulary books and things online. I follow a lot of Instagram pages, and sometimes I just see it, try to like repeat. And some of them have like step by step of you do first this line and then this, and then you have like that. So I think it's for everybody. It's just separating what I understand, like graphic recording is a skill and is a job that like she does really well. And I think other people can use in many other ways beyond graphic recording to just incorporate in your life, in your research and workshops. And another way for the facilitation that we start doing it is you do like some templates that people can fill in with their post-it. So you do a little drawing and just help people to engage. So you do a pre-panel and people contributed to it. So that's another way of using, like you're using the facilitation together with the graphic facilitation.
And I think nowadays you have these tools like this Miro, you have Miro and Muro, which is really nice, and other platforms who does some things virtually, because now with this new, a lot of virtual meetings reality, you don't, because I like a lot working with Post-it, people ideas, and then you mix it up. So this is an example of a platform that allows it, and it has like ready-made templates that you can choose.
Does it have a bunch of emojis?
For workshops, it has emojis. So sometimes you really don't need to draw. So for example, it has a SWOT analysis template, it has an action plan, you have all those mapping and diagramming. So nowadays, the timeline, so this helps a lot. I've been using Miro for like planning projects in a virtual way. So for example, it has also, you can put some icons also. You have the icon finder, and I don't want to draw this, but I want to put like a lab. And then you can just put the icon there. So this is, I like a lot of using Miro in virtual meetings. So instead of doing Google Docs, someone just reporting the meeting, when you need, for example, to do a brainstorm moment, and people can enter in the platform, each one do this post-it, and then we can just do like clusters. Oh, this idea is connected to this one, and then you can create like, okay, the green are the ideas related to this topic, and so you can organize the hierarchy, you do clusters, and these are like practice that we do a lot groups, right? You know, thinking of projects, or maybe our own research. And I've been using a lot this Miro for organizing my research, for example, And when I do meetings with a collective that they're taking projects, we use a lot of these tools. So
is Miro free?
Miro has a type of free account. If you are linked to university, you can get a student or professor account. That's similar to the paid version, which is pretty good. So you can export in PDF. And sometimes I do infographics in Miro, for example, and I can export and you can put it in a report, for example. For doing a conceptual map or explaining a framework. I like a lot of this one. Miro, the Miro, the other one that looks like, it's also good. I tried a little bit.
Patricia mentioned the book, the handbook in the chat by Mike Rohde, ROHDE. That's called Sketchnote Handbook.
Yeah.
It's a good resource as well.
Yeah, Sketchnote has a lot of very interesting things also.
And it's,
The
the
program is-
website is ROHDE sign.com, roadsign.com.
Nice.
The problem is the free version of Miro is that you cannot copy from one board to another, so it's difficult to use.
Yeah. it
If
has
you
some
use a lot,
limitations.
it's difficult to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did the student version, which is a little bit better, and you can export in a better quality. This is really important. But yeah, the free version is not that good, but with a student version or professor, you can explore more. And there are some colleagues that are using like in their classrooms with students presenting on them. Yeah.
And I guess also you don't have to create all the drawings. They're plantillas. They're places where you just can copy them and practice them. I've seen books before.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, the Doodle Revolution is a very good one for starting this first draws, the one that I presented here.
There's also a question in the chat. Can you
Yeah.
create templates for PowerPoint presentations using Miro?
Yeah, you can create, and you can present on Miro also. Miro has a presentation mode where you create the frames. For example, if I put in the presentation mode here, it will go to the first frame. See? And then you can just like do this. See, you can put like this. PowerPoint sheets. Right? So it has also this, or you can export each of this frame as a PDF page. So it creates like a PowerPoint sheet. It doesn't have this animated animation of the PowerPoint function, but it also can present. No. Someone that's but this is just like a brief presentation, like just showing some ideas. Because I started doing this with the Amazon Devs on Netflix, so it's a pleasure to come here and present a little bit, and it's really nice having this opportunity to come here.
So Stephanie, maybe you could be her graphic recorder during tomorrow's seminar. How's that?
You make little stick figures.
I particularly would like to learn more about this. So if you can share opportunities to having longer workshops, maybe online.
Yeah, there's
some people.
a group in Facebook that is called Graphic Facilitation. I saw a lot of courses there. Sunny Brown, David Sibit, and other graphic facilitators that are more famous.
Mhm.
But it's like a community, people who work there, sometimes they post, but I think there is a good place to search for these opportunities. And these 3 references, they have their websites that are put here. If you search for these 3 names, you find it. Yeah, for people who offer courses, I think it's more of these 3 ones, but
Brandy does some really good, she does workshops.
yeah, those two,
Yeah,
something like
use
that.
tools with your Facebook.
Yeah, and I think the David Sibet book is also good for taking this idea on meetings. I think it is a good reference for that. Yeah. And the Doodle Revolution is good to practice the drawing, to simulate the doodle. It's a funny book. You can draw on it, it's really nice.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking in being a graphic facilitator, but more a meeting facilitator working with a graphic facilitator. And how could the meeting facilitator make easy the work of the graphic facilitator? What do you think that's important?
You're thinking in which context? It's like a meeting?
In a meeting or workshop,
or
and
research, or
how to manage this connection or arrange the things planned.
I think that you should spend a lot of hours for talking with the person. As I said, when I start to talking with a client, I try to, really, let's do a meeting, show me some documents about this place, about this community, how many people, which are the resources, and you have a lot of issues besides the infrastructure and logistic things. But studying the visual references and giving good references for the person is really important for avoiding the stereotyping or things like that. And also, as in a specific type of work, if you have like someone recommended, oh, he already did work in this theme, environment, because if you bring a graphic facilitator that never worked with this issue, maybe he will not have this visual repertoire to represent things. So this is also something that is a challenge because you don't have too much graphic facilitators in the world. You have someone who has more like improvisation style and can handle it, but sometimes the person doesn't have the experience to deal with some things that may be an issue, right? So the more you talk with the person and try to see how some examples of it will do works of this person and see if it fits, and give more information about the issue for avoiding these mistakes. You think about what cannot be represented. So you can do this of it, or you cannot say this. Because when you work a lot of time, for example, you're doing in a community that you work a lot of time. You know what the issues that can be polemic, can be a problem, for example. Oh, you're not going to say about the women, because the men will get mad, for example. I don't know, something stupid example, but you cannot talk about this issue because it will be a problem. Don't represent that. So you can do also lists of not recommended things. So sometimes I do like a script of main questions to give for a client, to give for someone who's thinking a workshop or a meeting or a lecture or a congress. So sometimes I do some questions about what I need to avoid for the public. If you have people from different cultures, different languages, different places, for studying what do you need to avoid, for example, right? So the more you talk is better.
Do you have any strategies for overcoming skepticism? Like, I think this is a great tool. I think it would be so fun to use in a faculty meeting. Because I'm a scientist, some of my colleagues are very skeptical and would just be like, oh my God, I can't believe she's doing this to us. So what, they would be like, oh, this is not professional. Do you have any strategies for coping with that kind of thing, or just ignore it and go with it? Or
this is a good issue because I think that it depends on the public, right? For example, if it's an open public, you can do the drawings, but I think it has a lot of. That is why Sunny Brown talks a lot about like freedom your doodle, because people see doodle as something people doing bullshit, right? So yeah, it depends. If the public you see is more formal, you can do things in more that looks like a formal way, like an infographic looks like from a report infographic. You can do things more sober, use less colors. Yeah, you really need to think what the public that you're doing for So sometimes the product is more like a mirror result, something like table or infograph or conceptual map. And that's why you really need to know what kind of person you're dealing with. If you are the one that are organizing something and looking for a graphic facilitator, saying these things, it's also important in this briefing for avoiding this type of things. That people come and do like funny draws and people are looking at, yeah. And I think also it's important to make it clear what are the final product. Is it because sometimes the focus can be the process of the moment, communicate in the moment, but there are some times that people are looking for the final product, something to show for a financial institution or for being part of a report for the civil society, or this is for more for academics. Who is the public you are offering this final product? Or if it's the main aim of the graphic presentation is to help the process. You have the focus on process or the focus on products. It depends on that. And who is hiring the graphic presentation, the more clear you have this, if it's a process, product, who is what is the expectations of the people who will be participating. This is very good to talk with the person who is going to do it.
I think with academics, if you call infographics, they will like it. That's how I feel. You can call anything infographic and you might win.
These are familiar terms.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
also
use
think like you put up initially that doodling helps retain by 29%. I liked also
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
That was.
data.
really
It wasn't
helpful.
30%, it was 29%. Things like saying how this can benefit the process or the product, I think would appeal to
Even the grumpiest.
yes.
And I think a big challenge for the academic area is how to communicate your science to the society. Right? And sometimes people think, oh, this kind of strategy looks like childhood, but sometimes can be really helpful for them, right? I think it's a big challenge for all researchers how to communicate your science to the public society, and maybe it depends. Maybe it can help, right? And it doesn't need to be a lot of drawings. It can be like more arrows and organization of the information on infographics, on tables, or even little icons that can help communicating your results, right? And sometimes it's a huge gap.
It's just conversation. I'm sorry. Me and Patricia are creating plans.
I'll just ask one more question. So
Yeah.
how do you go about getting a graphic facilitator? And could this be a full-time job for you, or?
I wish. Yeah, I think what I see in Brazil, the practice of graphic facilitation. Well, with the COVID pandemic, everything got worse, and doing it in a virtual way is much more difficult. Because, for example, in a workshop, it's a very intense job, work you're doing. But the little 5 minutes that people are in the coffee, it's the time you finish your panel, you're putting some color. Oh, I forgot that. Oh, and you put there, and you're checking, with the person who did the lecture. Oh, what did you say at that time? So when you transform in a virtual way, it's much more difficult. And usually the planning, the briefing, the planning process before, it's worse. And I have a lot of friends who are complaining about that, how it's much more difficult in a virtual way. And the persons who I see more active, that maybe are living in this work area, are offering courses and working for big companies. Most of them are like You see, workshop of the bank, workshop of the, because they're the ones that, you know, and use it and has marketing and they use this project.
But there are people who are full-time
Yeah.
visual graphic facilitators.
And those are more focused like people who
There
are
are.
already illustrators, people who focus more in the product and less in the process. I like to think this tool more in the process, community engagement, and thinking about learning processes. That sometimes the product is not, it's like, okay, it's not that, you know, what a bank like a beautiful panel for putting in the Instagram. But I think it has a good potential of thinking on the process, interactions, and yeah. But it's pretty difficult to live on that without being in this more business area. Which is okay also, I see the ones who do that also do illustration, so they combine that design, graphic, and illustration and some of the presentation. I think they are not exactly the profile who will work well in a project in the middle of the Amazon maybe. They will need more briefing, they will need a little bit of experience there for having good visual references, for example. It's a big issue for this area. Yeah.
I'm just asking if people have any last questions, but no. So far.
Hopefully this can be moved to show this video when I put it.
For asking, thank you.
Yeah. Well, and this ones I'm selling. And I also brought some. I'm sorry, people, I come from Brazil and we really like this. I brought some copaíba and andiroba, someone wants to buy some of Amazon products. And some indigenous handcrafts.
Wow.
A little Amazon shop here if anyone wants to see it.
Oh, sorry, I meant a question, but Patricia was asking what kind of supplies do you need to do graphic recording in an event?
In an event, if you're doing a visual panel, you will need the paper roll, because we usually do a big piece of paper, Post-its, markers. You have some specific markers that are good, but depends of one likes different type of markers of different colors. The main things are that tape, and also you have this little thing here that I like a lot, that it's called mounting putty. Massa adesiva, you can put anything in the wall. When I discovered that, was like, this is the gold for the facilitators. And what else more? If you are using more visual tools, maybe tarjeta tags, paper tags. Well, usually you have a kit with a lot of things. If you are doing draws, always good to have black, gray for some shadows. And there are different styles that people sometimes use, like chalk or oil chalk, how do you say?
Pastel.
Yeah,
Oil pastel. And I like using watercolor sometimes, but we use water, so sometimes it can be a little bit messy. But, or sometimes just picking like two colors for not being too much things. Yeah, here I have some examples using like orange and red and yellow, and I like a more picking just some colors, but there are other ones who use more colors, or sometimes just one color and black. It depends. I like mixing post-it in the middle of the panel also. I think it helps. And well, I think it's that.
What I've learned, like graphic facilitators, we should never really get anywhere close to their own markers, right? Like most of graphic reporters, like the official, they don't like when you use their markers. So yeah, they don't. There's marker for people, and there's marker for.
There's a very good brand that's called Newland.
It's amazing,
They
but expensive.
they do materials for graphic facilitators. I think they're from Germany, right?
Yes.
Newland. They're really good. They do for that. And also, if you have a wall on the place, or if you need like a board that you need to provide, this is also important for doing the graphic facilitation in this more visual panel. But yeah, or you can create different supports like that calendar that I showed that I did with wood. It's pretty fun doing that. And you can really invent, like Carla Delasio, she's in the community, you don't have where to put, you just put some, a line and the papers, and sometimes you need to improvise, you get a piece of wood or putting as a support for putting the paper, and yeah, sometimes you need to do improvisation, right?
It's something amazing and very inspiring. I will follow you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. It's a pleasure being here. And tomorrow I'll be presenting one about my PhD, and you're all invited. And thank you very much for coming. Thank you, people in the internet, for being here. Thanks so much. Saying something.
Well, same thing here.
Yeah. If you need more information, I will put my email in, did I? I think in the call you have the email, but I put it anyway. If you have any doubt, you need some more information, you can just send me an email. In the website has also this information, and yeah, it will be a pleasure to show some examples. What I've been seeing here during this period here in US, something that maybe can dialogue with graphic facilitation. I found a professor at FIU who works with visual methods. I'm trying to remember his name, Vargas, something Vargas. I don't remember exactly his name. And I found a professor from, she's offering a course about art and ecology. I don't remember her name now, but I was talking with her in the email. Sounds really interesting. I'm trying to find this course. So you start searching and you find other persons who are doing similar things. As I said, people inventing this name of graphic facilitation, but people are doing similar things everywhere, and you need to connect these people, right?
And I wonder if there's like for people that work in the Amazon social environment that you already know each other and you try to learn from each other. Do you have that? Like, could you identify how many people in Brazil?
So graphic facilitation, I think in the social environmental world in Brazil, it really picked up. It's very famous. People know each other. Like most events that you go, there's a graphic facilitator. It's funny how it really, and I was on a workshop of Gia, and when an American woman came to me and said, it's so Brazil with this, you know, the way to express. Yeah, and I didn't even see here, guys. I know there's in the business, but it's not something that you see.
Oh, this is the Eco Art Expeditions. Is this woman that a professor that I found that she's working about art, linking art and ecology. I'm trying to, she's offering like an online course. I'm trying to talk with her to do this online course. I don't remember where she's from, but anyway.
Well, we had
Cool.
somebody on the chat, Isabella Arzola, who I don't know at least, and she's in a program called Design and Visual Communications here at the
Wow.
University of Florida.
See?
So I think we need to learn more about that program.
Yeah.
Nice. Let me see that. And well, I think in the area of design must be a lot of people working on that and.
This is I think the name of this course they said.
So the website is
Yes.
ecoartexpeditions.com. And so we were saying about the Brazil, yeah. So I think the NGOs, this work more linked in community engagement or working with local communities are looking more to the potential of this graphic facilitation. So people from agroecology, permaculture, and NGOs are working in social
Even
environment.
in the federal agents for
Yeah.
protected areas where I work, there are course of representation
Wow.
for.
Yeah, so they are really seeing the potential of it and it's starting to explore it, which I think it's really good.
So expressive.
Yeah, I think that must be it.
Yeah, maybe it's that, right? To
But it was
express in different ways.
All the ways possible.
Yeah. Maybe it's that,
And
right?
I think because it spread and some people start opening like little collectives like I have or little companies and they are being hired and train other people. It was kind of informal, like Entre Linhas was one of the first ones in São Paulo and they form a lot of other ones and really pick up.
Yeah, and sometimes people who were already working there started to, like me and other persons, I'm seeing a lot of people like that also. Which helps, like you are already working in an area and you just need these visual tools. And yeah, we need to strengthen this network and maybe link more with this people who are working in the design area, administration, and I think there's a lot of potentials there.
It's also just a great way to practice and improve your listening skills.
That's for sure.
And also like thinking on doing your own research by having everything in images. Like your presentation, I remember some of the images.
That's great.
Like I will forget what you said, some parts, but that's like these things
helps
get
you
stuck in your brain really. So
Yeah.
and while you're doing it, I imagine it helps you to, okay, this is my research question number one. You can think of it as a picture or as a drawing.
You get creative and I think that's interesting, right? You're working with your other side of the brain and when you're drawing, you have new ideas of connections that you don't see when it's just a list of,
Yeah,
you know.
not even bullet points.
Yeah.
Yeah, and fill your PowerPoint presentations with images and icons. Yeah, for sure. That's a lot.
Yeah, as this is mentioned, there's a whole other group of nature journaling that combines
Oh,
art
yeah,
and
that's true.
science, citizen science.
Yeah, this is nice also. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, people on the internet.
Thank you, Renata. That was great.